Hello everybody, welcome back into the Colored Gemstone Academy. I am Paul Deasy, your instructor, and this is my YouTube channel, Paul Deasy Gemstones. Well, if this doesn't look familiar, we're at our temporary world headquarters in Naples, Florida, because our house isn't ready yet. Anyway, as of this taping, day after Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving everybody. At the time of this taping, we are over 3,000 subscribers. So I want to thank each and every one of you, because it wouldn't have been possible without all of you and telling your friends to subscribe. So if you have not yet done so, please hit that subscribe button. It really does help me out. Okay, so this lesson is going to be lesson 75, and it is about Guatemalan jade. Sure, I know what you're thinking, but Paul, you already did a lesson on jade. It was episode 63, I think it was. What gives? Well, the last time I did a video for you, we were in Belize. And I had a lot of questions from subscribers saying, what gemstones do you find in Belize, if any? And the truth is, the only gemstone I can think of that's really found in Belize would be the conch pearl. And we did a lesson on that as well. There are other things, perhaps, like there's something that the locals call a river stone that looked like a type of agate, but there really isn't anything to speak of. But if you take a look on your screen, I'm going to show you a map, and a close neighbor to the south and the west of Belize is a place called Guatemala. Now I say close neighbor, but if we were to drive from Placencia in Belize, where we were, to where the mines are located in Guatemala, well, that would take about 209 miles approximately. You're saying, well, that's not too bad, right? No, wrong. To drive from where we were to Guatemala would be about 13 hours in the car. Not fun. Well, while I will be planning a trip to where the mines are and the factory is and the Jade Museum is, I'm going to plan to make that trip, but I don't plan on driving that. I'll probably fly into Antigua, Guatemala, that is, and then drive from there. While Guatemala does produce both jade and turquoise, for the purposes of this lesson, again, this is episode 75, we're going to concentrate on the Guatemalan jade. Now, chances are that most of you, when you think of jade, you're probably thinking either of Burmese jade, which of course comes from what is now known as Myanmar, used to be called Burma, or Chinese jade, where really most, if not all, of the jade that you're familiar with comes from there. Well, there's another source of jade, and it happens to be Guatemala, and it is a fascinating story, and I just couldn't resist doing this lesson on that jade from Guatemala. When most of us think about jade, we're probably thinking about Burmese or Chinese as the only source or most of where the jade comes from. We probably don't think as much about Guatemalan jade. Well, there's a very good reason for that. Since about 1300 BC, there were several very highly sophisticated societies in Central America, what we now know as Mesoamerica, and there were empires like the Olmecs, the Mayans, and the Aztecs. The Aztec Empire came into being in about 1428. And the Aztecs prized jade above all other gemstones. In fact, there's a lot of evidence of carvings of animals, of jewelry pieces, and even ceremonial Mayan masks. So they were going happily along for a long time until about 1521. Now, 1521 was when the Spanish conquistadors came in and vanquished eventually the Aztec Empire. Now, in order to preserve their culture, the Aztecs dispatched some families to guard and make secret the locations of the jade mines. And throughout the ensuing decades, as the families died out, and much of the culture of the Aztec Empire was lost, nobody knew where the mines were located. And basically, no jade was mined for about 500 years. So the whole idea behind guarding the entrance to the mines was to keep it secret from the Spaniards. Well, it turned out the Spaniards had no interest in jade at all. They were more interested in getting gold and emerald that was found in the area. They couldn't care less about jade. In 1952, Robert Leslie of the Smithsonian Institution identified a green jade that had been found near the small town of Manzanal, and that is near Antigua in Guatemala. So they were in this area where this jade had become lodged in some sort of tool that was used in tomato planting. And so they found that, and they decided to search for the source of this jade. And that went on for quite some time. So by as late as 1967, nobody could really trace the source of where the jade was coming from. They saw little bits and pieces here and there. Sometimes it comes down in a river stream during rain, things like that. But it wasn't until 1973, again almost 500 years since they last mined the jade. Jay and Mary Lou Rittinger, and they were American expats living in Guatemala. And they began to search for jade. They'd heard about the discovery maybe a decade earlier, and they decided they were going to traverse the hillsides and the mountainsides and look for jade. And it was a very, very difficult task. As I said in many other lessons, gems are sometimes in the most inhospitable areas in the entire world, and this was no exception. For almost a year, on foot, in the mountaintops, in very bad areas, in fact, where a lot of guerrilla warfare was going on, so they're risking their life in that way. There's also something called the cigarette snake, which is a highly poisonous snake, and it was called the cigarette snake because if you got bit by a cigarette snake, you had time to smoke one cigarette, and then you'd be dead. Not too pleasant. So finally, in 1974, Mary Lou Rittinger discovered a major block of jadeite in a serpentinite body on a hillside of the Zacapa region of the Motagua River Valley. The Rittingers also founded Jade Maya in 1974. It's a museum, a factory, and a shop featuring jade from Guatemala. You can find out more and actually order some jade from there if you go to jademaya.com. Now, the jade I found in Guatemala is very wonderfully varied. There's a lot of different natural colors that jade can come in. As a matter of fact, when you think about jade, the natural color of jade would be white. That would have no color in it whatsoever. But trace elements, as happens in all gemstones, will allow other colors to be seen. Now, we most think about jade being green, and a lot of that is due to chromium, which we find with chrome diopside and emeralds. But it can be a variegated green, sort of a mottled white and green combination. There is such a thing as imperial jade that can come from Guatemala, but it really doesn't stack up to the truly bright, very clean material that comes out of Burma. But there is a green jade, there's an imperial green jade, and there's a variegated green jade. There's also a blue, actually sort of a greenish blue that is found there. There's also a purer blue, they call it the Olmec blue, which is highly translucent and really, really a beautiful blue color. Some of the more rare jade that you can get would be that Olmec blue. By the way, they get these names sometimes that aren't really scientific names, but they become like Olmec blue, galactic gold, watermelon, emerald green, and it's all jadeite, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. Jade can be jadeite jade or nephrite jade. The more rare, of course, is the jadeite jade, and the more expensive is the jadeite jade. So how does the Guatemalan jade compare with the Chinese jade or the Burmese jade? Well, certainly the Burmese jade has, you know, kind of that location, and it's going to command a little bit more money. But you're going to find with the Guatemalan jade, there's a wonderful array of colors where you can find it. Now, of course, we think of jade, we think of the green jade, and you can get a sort of a natural green jade color. You can also get something that's called imperial jade, which would be a little bit deeper green, a little bit more chrome content in that. Resembles a little bit more like an emerald, but it's not going to stack up to what the Burmese imperial jade in both price and in appearance. There's also a blue, which is actually more of a bluish green, and that's going to be still called blue, and you can see a softer blue, but I'm going to show you a little bit of a deeper blue that they call Olmec blue. And the Olmec blue is highly translucent. It's in a bracelet that I'm showing you here. That's going to probably command the biggest prices among the Guatemalan jade. And the natural color for jade, of course, is white. And it's the trace elements that add those other colors, but you can get some really kind of beautiful white jade, as evidenced in the earrings on your screen right now. And then there's a black, and the black jade is not technically black, it just appears that way to the naked eye. But if you expose it to some light, you'll get to see a little bit of that very, very dark green color, really mossy, not emerald green. But in conclusion, it's something worth taking a look at. I think that it's still a relative bargain as far as jade goes. It has such an interesting history behind it as well. So we're going to wrap up our lesson on the Guatemalan jade. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please hit the subscribe button. It really does help me out. It doesn't cost you a thing. I know it says subscribe, but it's free, and it allows me to keep doing these lessons for you for free as well. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week on the Colored Gemstone Academy. Bye, everybody.